Hi, welcome back to Java for Beginners. In the previous video, we looked at how to run a very basic Java application using IntelliJ. In this video, we're going to talk about the infrastructure that makes it possible for us to develop and run Java applications. I know you're probably eager to start coding, but before we do that, just bear with me because we need to talk about the JRE and the JDK. The JRE stands for the Java Runtime Environment, the JDK, the Java Development Kit. And how are they related to the IDE? So what do I mean by that? Look, we click this play button. By the way, you can find the play button here as well if you like. And we ran the program and we got hello world executed. So what happens behind the scenes? What happens when you hit that run button? As in, how do we go from this text to this text? What is the process? What does the IDE do on our behalf when we hit that run button? To help us answer that question, we need to understand those two tools, the JDK, the JRE. Let's consider this diagram. So what is the JDK? The JDK, as we have written here, is basically a bunch of tools that are needed to write, compile, and develop Java application. All right. And I give an example here and I say, like the javac. The javac stands for Java compiler. A compiler is a piece of software or a tool that you use to transform source code into executable code. So in our case, we transformed the Hello World program into a form that the computer can execute. The JRE is the Java Runtime Environment. It is basically a bunch of runtime libraries. What does that mean? What is a runtime library? Well, a runtime, first, is when you run your application, that's runtime. So a library that you can access and use within your application at runtime. All right, so what is a library? A library is a collection of Java programs and Java code that are bundled together because they perform a similar function, or they collaborate to perform an operation, or it just makes sense to bundle them together. So that's a library. One library that we used in our application was a library that allows us to print, and that's how we got our Hello World printed. We have the tools that allow us to build, develop, and compile our software, and they're bundled in the JDK. Then we have libraries that are meaningful that we can use them at runtime, as in when the application is running. What is the JVM? The JVM is the Java Virtual Machine. It is the platform where your Java applications will run. Think of it as, if you think of your Java application as a DVD, then the JVM is the DVD player. So your application has a movie, you put it in the DVD player, and then the player executes your application or plays that movie. When you're working with Java, you're either a developer, somebody who makes Java applications and runs them, or you're just a user of Java applications. So you don't make them, you just run them. So if you're a developer, you will need a piece of software called the JDK, whereas the users will only need the JRE software. That's why if you exit out of your application and go back to the initial window where we created a new project, if you hit that button again, you only see an option to download a JDK. You're not seeing an option to download the JRE. Why? Because what's the use of the JRE if you're literally trying to build application? To show you what I'm talking about, you can go to java.com and select download Java. And on that download page, I'm running an M series Mac, so I'll select the ARM64. And when you hit download and you look at the file that was downloaded, it says JRE, all right? So that will only run application. Now you can go back to Google and type in download Java JDK, which is what IntelliJ did for us. And then that'll take you to Oracle's page or any other vendor, it doesn't matter. And you can find links to download the JDK. So as beginners, I didn't want to deal with having to download it from the website and install it yourself. Like I said, with IntelliJ, it's all taken care of for you. So for instance, you pick Java 17 and you want to download the Oracle version, there you go. And you just hit select and then you create a new project and it will be downloaded for you. So now that we understand the JDK, the JRE, what happens when you, on your IDE, hit that play button? Let's find out. In order to explain this, we're going to have to use the terminal, which is basically a way to send commands to your system. Now, Windows is different, while Mac and Linux are the same. So I'm going to show you first how to do it on Windows, and then I'm going to show you the Mac and Linux way. So just hit your run button again, and I'd like you to pay attention to the output on the screen. You see that C users ... Copy that until you get to java.exe. So copy it, and then I want you to open a terminal window within IntelliJ. And in that terminal window, I have a PowerShell session. So I can do something like ls to list the files that are existing in the directory that I'm in, which is the Hello World application that we are working with. I can do something like cd for change directory, and I'm just hitting tab, and I get source. So I hit enter, and then I can ls, and I see that there is main.java, which is this guy over here. Now, I'm going to paste in what I copied from earlier, but I'm going to add a C after Java, which will be Java C, Java compiler. And I'll write after, so space main.java. And like I just wrote main and then I hit tab, and then it auto-completed for me a dot backslash main.java. If you hit enter, the command executes. And if I ls again, notice there was one file. I ls, now there's two files. There's main.class, main.java. If you have a look here, open Explorer, source, that's what we're talking about, right? So the .class is the compiled Java code that we can execute using the JRE, which will execute it on top of the JVM. So let's do that. And the way to do it is we paste in the same thing we copied, but instead of adding C, we're done compiling. So we just need the Java command, and we say main. Notice before we said backslash main.java. We don't need to do that. And we don't need to say main.class. We just type in the name of the class. What is a class? We'll find out later. But we just need to type in the name that is over here. And then if we hit enter, we get the output executed for us. Let's go and change this a little bit. So let's make it Hello World 2. All right, I'm going to save it, and I'm going to try to run it again and see if anything will change. Nothing changes because I haven't compiled it yet. So I will need to compile it. So if you use the arrow up, you can see your history, your previous commands, and then you can have the ability to re-execute a previous command without having to type it again. So I'm interested in re-executing the compile command. So I'll just do that. So it's been compiled again. And then the java.exe command will run the application for me. And I can see now the addition we made to is now visible. So every time you hit that play button, two things happen. You compile or build. And the second thing is your application gets executed. So Java C and Java. Now let's go and see how this process is taking place on Mac and Linux. Now going back to my Mac, repeating the same steps that we followed. I'll look at the path that is being generated here. That is where my Java executable, my JRE executable lives. So I'm going to close that, open a terminal window, and I'm going to paste that. But instead of Java, I'm going to paste Java C, right? But actually before that, I'm going to change directory into source. And then I'm going to paste that with C at the end. And I'm going to do the same thing I did, main.java. I'm going to compile that. And then if I ls, I have two files, which we can see here, main.class, main.java. And I can do something like this, and that'll execute my program. And again, let's make the change that we made and try to run the program again. It doesn't have the change. However, if we compile it, then run it, we'll see the change being reflected. Same exact steps can be repeated on your Linux machine. I'm going to leave a link in the description below to this article, so you can learn more about the JDK, JRE, and the JVM. And again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video where we're going to break down the Hello World application and discuss it in detail. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.